Welcome everyone to this edition of the book club. This is now a book club which has completed 24 years on planet Earth. And we're very happy and very proud that it continues in its 25th year now. Now, we have had many turns and twists and reinventing ourselves and the nature, of the grouping and of the way we meet. We used to meet physically, now we meet virtually, like, on Zoom. And let's see where it goes from here. But we love it, and we're glad that you're all with us. So today we have Sunita Shetty, who is the presenter of the day, and she's going to talk about Elif Shafak's novel, There Are Rivers in the Sky, which is a very intriguing title. Now, some of us were having a chat before we started formally, talking. And ever since I heard the title, I thought, ooh, how's that? I mean, what is this going to be about? And since I didn't do any research on it and I haven't been able to read the book, I'm full of curiosity, ready to burst. So thank heavens the time has come, and we now have Sunita to tell us about the book and then discuss it thereafter. So everybody, I hope you have muted your mics, and as I will too, only Sunita's mic will be on. Over to you, Sunita.
Thank you so much. And let me just was was launched last year in August of 2024. And needless to say, as soon as it was launched, I wanted to get my hands on it. Elif Shafak has been an author that I love. I have read multiple books of hers. I did the last book that was there, which her last book, which was The Island of Missing Trees, a book that I loved tremendously. So I was waiting to get my hands on this, and I did get it, and I finished reading it. The interesting thing is that the book is about, needless to say, is about water. Water is the theme of the book, and I read it on a trip to Varanasi that I did in December, and it seemed interesting to read a book about rivers when I was on the banks of the Ganges, and we'll come to the connections that I made with this. Before I get started with the book, for all those who don't know Elif Shafak, she is of Turkish origin, now lives in the UK. She now has British nationality. She always likes to call herself a storyteller. She believes that she has stories to tell, and that's what she does. And what a phenomenal way she does it, as you can see. And Mohini said that she's a prolific writer. She's published 21 books, 13 of which are novels. They've been translated to multiple languages. One of the books that Mohini, reviewed, which is 10 minutes and 38 seconds, was actually shortlisted for the Booker Prize. I was very disappointed that The Island of Missing Trees was not shortlisted. It was just a phenomenal book. I would have given it the award. It was so lovely. And of course, that wonderful book, and we were discussing this before when everybody was coming in, The 40 Rules of Love, which the BBC chose as novels that shaped our world. And it truly is a novel that is, if somebody has not read it, please do. It ranks really among my top 5 books that best books that I have ever read. So she writes in Turkish, but she also she speaks in English. She writes in English as well, speaks wonderfully well. In fact, I think if you get a chance to please see her interviews, they are phenomenal. Her thought, her ideas, the way she articulates them, I think is tremendous. So she's such a delight to even hear, not just read, that is there. I pulled out this one last slide, and then I'll stop share and start with the review. But just to show you that this is her on Twitter, or X as it's called now, where she is the voice for the marginalized. She talks about women in Afghanistan. She talks about the Kurds. She's unafraid to speak her mind. And you can see that in the novels, in every novel of hers, she always talks about the marginalized. In The Bastard of Istanbul, she spoke about the Armenian genocide that was there in the island of missing trees. It was about the Greek Cypriots and and the troubles that they were having getting acceptance about identity. These are recurring themes and things that she brings about so beautifully in the books that she writes. So I'm going to stop share here now because these are all the slides that I have, and I don't do very well in creating slides, but I'd much rather just speak about the book more than anything else. So um, there are rivers in the sky, and this book is it's about 500 pages long. It's a book that scans countries, cultures, continents, centuries. Really, it starts with a drop of water that flows through the centuries, and it connects three wonderful stories, three wonderful characters together, brings them together. And so there are three characters in the book. There are two rivers, the Thames and the Tigris, and there's one drop of water. So Elif Shafak in all her interviews will talk about 3, 2, 1, which is three characters, two rivers, and that one drop of water. There's also one epic poem, so we can add the one to that. That this whole book is. Revolves around. So the book is dedicated to rivers. The book is dedicated to water, and it's in true Elif Shafak style to take something like water and a one drop of water and create an entire novel around it and bring out these wonderful themes that she has brought out in the book. I think only Elif Shafak can do so. Absolutely wonderfully written. This book is. So water is at the heart of this novel. It starts really, the book begins not with the three characters, but the book begins in 7th century BC in Mesopotamia. We are introduced to King Ashurbanipal. He's a tyrannical despot, but ruling this very, very wealthy land that is there. They describe it with gardens and trees and very, very beautiful. But apart from being this despot, he's also a great intellectual. He has this phenomenal library that is there, a wonderful library that has tablets of stories, of books, of poems that have been collected from different parts of the world. Some people have donated them. Some, of course, have been taken and snatched away from different cultures and brought to this wonderful library that King Ashurbanipal has. It's a center of learning, really beautiful. The description of it with all the tablets that are there. The entry to the library has these two big stone cultures of the Lamesis. Now, the Lamesis, some of y'all may have seen pictures of it. If anybody's been to the British Museum, they are there currently. The big stone structures, it has the face of a human being. It has the body of a lion, 5 legs, and wings, and it's this mystical character, and both big stone structures of the Lamesis really adorn the entry to the library. And what the king is most proud about, and a work of writing that he loves, is the Epic of Gilgamesh. Which is, to all the literary people here, you probably know that this is the oldest literary piece of work that exists, right? This wonderful epic poem that is there, and this poem flows through the book entirely. So we start with this. That's how she starts, and it talks about him, his love for literature, the troubles that he's having with his brother, and he's standing out in his balcony, and there is a storm that is coming, and the first drop of water falls on his head, and that's when, in the book, she ends that chapter by saying, water remembers, It's humans that forget. So that she establishes really the theme of the book right there itself at the end of this chapter. And then she goes on to having the next page talk about H2O, right? So the two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen that is there. And her characters are really these atoms. So which is why she has three characters, yeah, two hydrogen and one oxygen, that take us through the story of water through this entire book that's there. So let me start with the three characters that are there. Okay, now this setting of this character is in Victorian England, in the 18th century. It's very it's almost like a Charles Dickens character, because he's born in poverty. There's dirt and squalor and things like that he's born into. This is a little baby that is born on the bank of the River Thames. His mother is very, very poor. She's what's called as a tosher. The toshers are people who go into the Thames and go through the mud and the dirt and the filth in the Thames to try and find things of value that they can sell. So there's a description of the Thames being extremely filthy and dirty and polluted and choking and dying. And this little baby is born on a very, very cold day when the snowflakes are falling. And his mom had gone to work, but she gets into labor, and he's born on the banks of the Thames. And there's snowflakes falling down on his face, and all the other toshers look at him, and they're trying to think of, they're surprised that he survives, really, in the baby survives. And they're thinking what name to give him, and they decide, let's call him Arthur, and then let's call him King Arthur. So he's then christened as King Arthur of the Sewers and the Slums. Right, so that's his full name, King Arthur of the Sewers and the Slums. Now, little Arthur grows up in abject poverty. His mom is in depression. His father is a drunkard. But he's a curious young boy. And we find out that once he goes to local school that's there, and we find that he has a wonderful ability to remember. Arthur has a memory, and he can think and remember dates and remember what happens on that date. And that's such a phenomenal gift that he has, which is a gift also, and something that goes against him also, because people look at him as somebody who's very odd, and he's sort of, people don't want to then be friends with him. So he's a very lonely boy, but he has this great gift that is there, and his father sees it and introduces him to takes him to a printing press so that he can get a job. And we see that Arthur, at a very young age, is a young boy who is supporting his family. And he takes that role very, very seriously. He gets up early in the morning. He goes to work. He does his job very well, because he doesn't want to be thrown out of his job. They need the money to be able to take care of his family. But what this introduces Arthur to is this wonderful world of books. And in his break time, Arthur spends his time reading the books. And the owners of the publishing house realize that this is a interesting young lad who has this great desire to learn. And in the printing press, they print books from across the world. And one of the books that they print is a book on the remains of Nineveh, which is about Mesopotamia. And Arthur reads the book, and he's so taken in by this. He's constantly trying to understand more of it, and there's a great hunger to know more about it. And he then realizes that there are artifacts from Nineveh that are coming to the British Museum. Now, he's a poor child, so he's nervous about going to the museum. But during his break, he runs to the museum to see what are the artifacts coming. And that's when he sees the big crowd, and he sees these big stone statues of the Lameses being brought in to be installed in the British Museum. And he's standing there, wide-eyed wonder. And there's a elderly gentleman standing next to him, who's sort of, quite amused with this young lad, showing such interest in this, and they strike up a conversation. And And the gentleman is surprised to see that he knows so much of the about Nineveh and about the Lameses because he's read the book right in the printing press. And so the man tells him that you can come and see this anytime once it's installed in the museum. And if anybody stops you, just tell them that the director of the Department of Antiquities has said that you can come and see it. And he's this boy is so thrilled, and Arthur then goes back um, to the museum multiple times. Now I'll move on to the other characters, but before I move on, I want to tell you. So Arthur has, takes care of his entire family. Like I said, he has a set of twin brothers. One day when he's coming home, there's lots of illness around, and when he's coming home, he decides that let me take a bottle of fresh water home so that they can all be drinking it, and he takes it from the well and he takes it home, and one of the twin brothers drinks that water and suffers from cholera, and there's an outbreak of cholera that happens. In all of London, there's a lot of trouble, especially in that area where they stay, and his brother dies. And eventually they realize that it was the water from that pump, from that well, where he took that water home, that caused the death of his brother, and that's something that stays with him forever. That water that could give life could take life away as well. All right, so I'll stop here and we'll come back to Arthur, because Arthur's really is at least to me, is a character that we should spend some more time with. So we'll come back to Arthur in a bit. The second character that is there, and now we move to 2014. Okay, more recent times, we're introduced to a young girl called Nareen. Nareen is a Yazidi, which is an ethnic group of the Kurds in Iraq. She's living in Turkey with her grandmother, and we're introduced to her where she's getting baptized on the banks of the Tigris. And just when her grandmother is starting the ceremony for the baptism, there is a bulldozer that is working, and they eventually push them away and tell them to move, and doesn't allow the baptism to happen because Turkey is building a dam across the river over there. And then we're introduced to the fact that everybody in the village is very worried that the village is going to get flooded, that they're going to lose their homes, the cemeteries where their ancestors are buried are going to go, and there's a lot of worry about that. Now, Naren lives with her grandmother. Her father is a musician, is a traveling musician, so he's not at home all the time. Her mother is dead. And we also know that Naren has a genetic problem. She is going deaf. She will ultimately become completely deaf. She knows that. Her grandmother knows that. And Naren spends a lot of time with her grandmother, constantly asking her to tell her stories. And her grandmother is full of stories because Naren knows that that's the only memory that she is going to have left when she is completely deaf. So she spends a lot of time with her grandmother. Her grandmother is somebody who tells her the stories of their culture, of their past, of the Yazidis, what they believe in, the story of ancient stories of a man who took all the animals and went in a boat, and then there was the grand flood that happened, and then he set a bird free to find dry land. Now, we all know the story, but what we need to know is that the Yazidis had the story much before the Old Testament was even written. But these are how stories came down through oral storytelling. And her grandmother tells her stories about the culture and about the past. And Naren just loves listening to all the stories that are there. Now, the baptism hasn't happened. So the grandmother decides and tells the father that we should take Naren to Iraq, to Mosul, where the grandmother's mother came from, Lila came from. And that's the holy place where they can do the baptism again. So they all gather their belongings and they make the trip to Iraq. That's when we realize and we are introduced to the fact that there's a lot of political unrest. People are very, very against the Yazidis. There's a lot of angst against them politically. Even neighbors are against this ethnic community. They call them devil worshippers because they don't follow the books of religion that the others are following. The Yazidis hail much, older than Christianity or Islam, but society doesn't accept them and they're called as devil worshippers. So that comes into play, and as they get into Iraq and they're just entering the village of Mosul, um her father goes out to meet with relatives, and the grandmother and granddaughter are alone at home, and that's when ISIS comes in and attacks the village. And the villagers have to all run, grandmother and granddaughter, along with the other villagers, you know, go towards, run towards the mountains to help them, to save them from being killed. And they're all dying of thirst. They cannot go to find water. They cannot drink water from the wells because the ISIS has poisoned the water, because they want to get rid of the Yazidis. They want to kill them. And there's this group that's there on the mountains. There's a detailed description about how they're trying to save the children by giving them one drop of water. I think that whole chapter, which is really true, it really happened, when the genocide happened in 2014, where just one drop of water was given to children, but eventually many of them died. The grandmother, who otherwise, is a healer, she's also somebody who's got the ability to take brass rods or to take a twig and to be able to find water. So she leaves Naren, with the others, and says, I will go look for water. And but Naren follows her, and that's when the ISIS captures both grandmother and granddaughter. They are separated. We then find young Naren, young teenage girl, whose hearing is not so good at this point, now being taken to be a sex slave in one of the ISIS head's house that is there. And that's this character that is there. Then we move on to the third character. Now we are in 2018, in modern day London. We are introduced to Zalika. Zalika is the daughter of immigrants. She comes from the same region, Turkey, Syria, Iraq region. Her parents have died in a flood. And it is her uncle, very wealthy uncle, who takes care of her. Her uncle has been in London for the longest time, and he is the one who takes care of Zalika. Now, Zalika, brilliant student, right? Works very hard, does very well in college, and then decides that she's going to become a hydrologist, which means the study of water, and which disappoints her uncle tremendously. He feels that there's no money in it, and she should be doing. She's such a brilliant girl that she should be doing something else, right? But the study of water attracts her. Whether it's to do with the death of her parents or what it is, but that's her calling. And she eventually works with a professor who is doing his research to prove that water has memory. And it's such a phenomenal idea. She works a lot with him. They do a lot of research, and eventually they write a paper. But then the entire academic community comes down very hard on him, and he eventually dies, a broken-hearted man. But Zalika herself wants to carry on his research. Now, we're introduced to her at a point where her marriage is broken. She's going through a divorce. She walks out of her house, excuse me, and she doesn't know where to go. So she chooses to rent a houseboat on the River Thames. And that's where she is. The interesting part of Zalika and the characterization that Shafak does of her struggles are really internal. both the other characters. Arthur, it's about poverty and acceptance from society and all that. Naren is about, her ethnic origins, her physical disability of hearing. But with Zilika, it's really about her own internal turmoil. Of being unhappy and unable to, and lonely and unable to hold on to relationships. She doesn't create this tight bond with her uncle. Her marriage is broken up. She's lost her mentor, and yet she has this great desire to understand water, and she studies rivers, and that's where we are introduced to the fact that there are rivers that flow, and there are many rivers that have been buried. Right. So under London itself, there are 3 rivers that flow, and those have been buried. And Shafak takes us through what it means to bury a living thing, right? And something that is so important for us, and it's not something that should be buried, especially at a time when freshwater, there's such a big freshwater crisis in the world that is happening. So we're introduced to the fact that many of our cities have in the world have lot of rivers that have been buried by us. We have covered them up and we have built on them, and the kind of problems that is causing. So um, it's this character, and the character of the uncle. Her uncle's character brings about the talk of identity, because he is Syrian Turkish, but he came to London and he tried to become as British as he could. He amassed a lot of wealth. He became somebody who's part of the House of Lords, but he never really ever got accepted, and yet he chose to forget his past. That was there. So now these are the 3 characters that are there. Let me come back very, very quickly. I want to stop talking as quickly as possible because there's lots to discuss. So I'll come back and I'll wrap up with the character of Arthur. So Arthur eventually goes back to the museum and looks at the tablets, the pieces of the tablets that have been brought into the British Museum, right? And he's so proud of the fact that Britain is taking care of these precious artifacts, right? This is Western culture and this is where it belongs. It belongs to the British Museum and they will take care of it. And he goes there during his break. And the entire department in the British Museum is trying to decipher the cuneiform, the language in which the tablets are written, and they cannot. And Arthur, with this extraordinary ability of his, eventually is able to decipher the tablets. And the museum is so so fascinated that he's able to do that. They give him a full-time job, which he takes up. It pays him less than the printing press, but this is where his heart lies. He's so fascinated by Nineveh, by what happened at that time in Mesopotamia, that he wants to do this, right? And he takes it up. He then becomes, the British press is so impressed with him. Finally, people fund him to actually travel to Mosul, to that part of Iraq, so that he can do some excavation and find more tablets and bring them back. And he sets on the expedition, very, very difficult expedition that is there. He goes to Mosul. He lives with the Yazidis. And that's when he realizes the tensions that are there, even at that time. So now we're talking about a century earlier than Naren, but even then, people hated the Yazidis. But the Yazidis help him to uncover the tablets that are there. And there is the chief and the chief's daughter, who 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 Arthur falls in love with. In a way, it's a very it's a very quiet love. Let me not say one-sided, because Arthur is married back home, but he's so impressed with the chief's daughter, and she sort of explains the culture of the place, and how the things that belong to them and what the Yazidis own are all being taken away. And Arthur, sort of begins to think about, is he doing the right thing about taking these artifacts back? But he does take them back to London. He becomes a huge hero in London now. He becomes even more wealthy, and he's the toast of the town. People invite them to their houses. The wealthy people invite him, and he goes there. And in their houses, he finds bits of artifacts from Mesopotamia in their houses. It's what wealthy people do, right? They want to have antiques in their house. And all this bothers Arthur a lot, because, does it really belong here? Or does it belong to the people who created this? Yeah, do these tablets belong in Britain, or do they belong in Iraq with the people whose culture is being portrayed in what is there in these antiques? Anyway, Arthur hears of the poem of Gilgamesh, which is written, which is available in a beautiful lapis lazuli, beautiful blue tablet that is there, and he gets funded to go back to get that tablet. And he also wants to go back because he tells the chief's daughter that I will come back, and he knows that, and there is a calling that is there, and he wants to go back. He goes back, and unfortunately that's the time when there's lots of trouble. There's an outbreak of cholera, villages die, and Arthur dies in that. I just want to read that part, that last part of when Arthur dies, from the book. It says, time is a river that meanders, branching out into tributaries and rivulets, depositing sediments of stories along its shores in the hope that someday someone somewhere will find them. The blue tablet is exceptional, but as Arthur ruminates about it, his own fallibility hits him. To whom does this object belong? The bards who recited the poem, traveling from city to city, the king who ordered it to be put in writing, or the scribe who labored into setting it down, or the librarian who scrupulously stored it, or the archaeologist who unearthed it centuries later, or the museum that'll keep it safe? Or does it belong to the people of the land? And if so, will minorities like the Yazidis ever be counted amongst them? He has gifted Lila one of the tablets he found, but should he have given them all to her? Arthur hopes that the Epic of Gilgamesh will be read, appreciated, and studied by enthusiasts on every continent. They might not have much in common at first glance, except for an inexplicable pull towards a fragmentary tale in an extinct language. The lovers of the story will probably be a curious bunch, walking under the spell of a poem, 3,000 lines long and more than 3,000 years old, incomplete and fractured, with its flawed hero, inherent uncertainties, shifting moods, and refusal to offer easy optimism. It's a narrative that mirrors an imperfect world. So Arthur dies of cholera in that place, in Mosul, very close to the excavation site, a place probably ideal for somebody who loved what he was doing. It seemed best that he be there. He was buried in the cemetery there, bordering the Yazidi village, and on his tombstone was written, King Arthur of the sewers and slums, born by the river Thames, 1840, died by river Tigris, 1876. All right, I'm going to end here, just by telling you that it's wonderful in the book how Elif Shafak brings these three characters together. There is a connection between the three. I'm not going to get into that so that you all can read the book and enjoy it. But the book, she really brings about the themes very, very strongly in each of the characters and in everything that happens in the book. And it's largely about memory, right? The responsibility we have about memory, because otherwise, how will we remember the past? We're going to make mistakes if we don't remember the past. So memory is so important, and that's a theme that flows through the book. There's another one of silences, of what is it in conversations? Where is it in conversations? Is there a silence? Which means, what is it that people are unwilling to talk about? Yeah. And who are the people that are being silenced? And that comes through the book as well. And of course, the large one is a theme that she, covers in many of her other books about identity, about identity of people, right? Who are these minorities? What are we doing to the identity of people? What are we doing to their memory? What are we doing to the collective memory, not just of the Yazidis, but of course, it's something that she has been through as well, having spent a large time, a part of her life in Turkey. And the identity of objects, yeah, these beautiful artifacts that are there, who do they belong to? Do they belong here? Do they belong to the people who created it? Do they belong to people who are willing to take care of it? So it's a wonderful, wonderful book, really, that covers these three themes. It's unbelievable that you can write a book about a droplet of water and weave this beautiful story covering these three themes. But that's Elif Shafak for you. I'll stop now and I'll open for the discussion.
No, I was, as usual, Sunita is, you know, very enthusiastic and energetic in her presentations, and she sort of encourages, let us say, our deep involvement. Now, in this case, the subject is such, it is such a living issue. I mean, everyone knows that worldwide there is a shortage of potable water, right? And they're doing all kinds of expensive experimentation on turning seawater into potable water and whatnot. In our own city, we have seen how builders are just covering up those little nallas and, those little rivulets, covering them up, if you please, and building them. Satish, I mean, fought and won that particular battle about a lake in Pune, which a builder wanted to dry up and build upon. 27 acres of lake. All right. He wanted to dry it and build on it. What the heck? I mean, it's so immoral, the things that are happening. And the importance of water is so fundamental.
Really, really love to read this book, but I haven't read it. But I just wanted to comment about the memory of water. It is the basis of the homeopathy, no? That is what homeopathy is based on, is the memory of water. Because if something is diluted and diluted and diluted, it becomes so dilute that there is no longer any of the original substance in it. But they're depending on the memory of water to have that, to act as an antidote to that. I don't know if any of you have used homeopathy, but I
Yeah,
use it all the time. So that is what it is based on, the memory of water.
How
So it was
How
really
interesting.
interesting.
question I had, by the way, for
Hmm,
Sunita is
hmm,
this man, this Arthur, he's a
hmm.
fictional character or he's the real character who had deciphered the cuneiform?
Thank you so much for asking that question. It is based on a real character called George Smith.
Ah,
And
yeah,
he
he's
had
the guy.
actually, this is really his
Yeah.
narrative, that he had, he was so interested in this and he went and got the tablets and, deciphered it. And, he's an unsung hero, really. But it is based on a real character. In her interview, what she talks about is about George Smith
Mm.
and how he really decoded the tablets, and the tablets were all in cuneiform. They only talk about
Yeah,
cuneiform
yeah, yeah.
in the book.
There's a
So they actually called Elif Shafak to the British Museum,
ah.
and they did a 1 hour interview, and I'll send that link out. It's
Okay,
just
please do.
so interesting to and then
Mm.
hearing her, like I said, just listening to her speak is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And they did it in, I think the the statues were there right next to her, and they spoke about it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there was the whole thing about, who does this really belong to? And they did
Yeah,
bring it.
yeah.
And she
That's a
was,
big issue with British Museum and everything
Yeah,
nowadays,
yeah,
no?
and she
absolutely.
talks about repatriation, and Shafak says, let's have a discussion about it. Yeah, let's
Mm.
talk about, where does this belong? Do we really, should it be here? Should it be there? She keeps saying, she says, I hate having to, I hate being a teacher and saying what needs to be done. She says, through my stories, I want questions to come
Yeah,
out
you
and for
want more
people
people to
to,
think
yeah, to
about.
have conversations.
Yes, yes. And see, this is the great thing about a book club. Now, see what interesting things we're talking about and how we're learning from each other. All this accumulated knowledge, is being shared. Fantastic. Yes, carry on. Who's next? Yashodhara, you want to weigh in over here?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was, I struggled with the first, I think, 100 pages of the book. I found it too slow, and I picked up Elif Shafak after many years. And then I couldn't stop reading. Uh, then, of course, like Sunita was saying, watching her interviews is a delight. I mean, when you read the book and you listen to her, it's like, oh my God, now I understand the book even better, and I love the book even better. One of the themes that I also love that it's subtle, but it is quite explicitly spoken about is right in the beginning. She mentions that the scribes are told to the ones who are writing these tablets in the who's the king? Ashur
Asul
Banipal.
Banipal.
They
Ashwani.
start, yeah, so the history there is they would end their tablet, whatever the story is, by praising the goddess
Of
uh,
storytelling.
n- of storytelling,
Yeah.
Nasaba. And the king then doesn't want it to be attributed to a woman. And slowly in his reign, he changes it to praise be to Nabu. So he actually creates a god who does not previously exist to say that it cannot, the credit cannot be given to a woman, it has to be given to a man. So a god is created for the purpose. And then all the tablets are thereafter signed praise be to Nabu. And much later, sometime I think Arthur finds one of the tablets which says Nasaba, and he wonders, but there's all the
Who
other
is this?
stories are attributed to Nabu, and who's this Nasaba? So Shafak doesn't go deep into it, but she leaves it there for us to ponder about. So I thought that was a beautiful thing. Like what we know about history, how much is it true and how much is manufactured
I
is a
tell
really,
you, yes,
yeah,
yes. And that's another issue that is being talked about so much. You
yeah,
know, our history being rewritten here and there, and now
true. And it's
Bangladesh
happening
is
as we
doing it.
speak.
Oh, absolutely, all
We
around
are doing
us.
it.
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
So
true.
anyway, I decided to point a finger at Bangladesh because it's
Safer.
not us.
Safer, surely.
Right. So these are such important issues, aren't they? All of them that we've
Mukul
been
wants to
talking.
say something more.
Okay,
Um,
Mukul, yes.
Mohini, in continuation of what you just said,
Ah,
William Dalrymple recently said that what WhatsApp tells us is history. And there was this huge discussion about it that somebody said, yes, that's it. And why is it like that? And then a professor from the JNU explained that because basic teaching of history in colleges is so poor that this sort of makes up easy to remember and almost true and tells you what you want to believe and that kind of thing. So this controversy last week was on for quite some time.
hmm,
So let me
yeah.
add to that.
Go on.
No, just to respond to Mukul, that
Yes.
in her interview, Shafak talks about the fact that we are all thinking that we are gaining our knowledge from social media, right? And she says you cannot get knowledge from social media because it's only you're getting like one sentence and two sentences and little clips of a video, and that's not knowledge. She says conversation is knowledge. None of us know anything. We need to talk about it, we need to discuss it, we need to understand the nuances of memory, of genocide, of how are we marginalizing people, what are we doing to our waterways. Those things need to be talked about and spoken, and it can't be done on social media platforms. And she says that's why she loves writing books that allows her to touch so many topics, bring out the nuances of what all what the possibilities are,
What
rather
a-
than, you know, just
exactly
one
like what
bullet
Amitav
for.
Ghosh has said. Amitav Ghosh has said, and he's written a new book called Wild Fictions. And this is what getting people to think differently again. And all about your what is we're losing control of our uh, uh, trees, water, everything is going under because we don't take care of that.
Water by Abraham Verghese.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
did that
Yeah,
one.
I
we
think
did. You bet. You bet we did.
Not very long ago, last year only.
not too
Yeah,
long
not
ago,
so long
last year,
ago.
I think.
And that was a
Not too
hybrid.
long ago.
That was also Sunita.
Covenant
Covenant of Water.
That was, I
Yes,
think,
It
yes.
a
has
physical meeting, right?
Covenant.
that water carries memories. There's some reference to that. I don't think any of us remember the
Well, that's
details.
interesting because I don't remember this. I don't remember the memory of water there. I don't. So thank you, Uma, for pointing it out. And yes,
Covenant of
Sanjay,
Water.
correct. Sanjay,
Yeah, hi, Mohini. Yeah, of course, I haven't read the book.
Hmm.
But I did read an earlier book, I think, Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. And of course, she writes brilliantly, that's not in doubt. And it requires a lot of skill to tie together effectively three different strands that are going on
yes.
simultaneously. I think that requires a certain degree of literary adroitness, shall we say. And she does it very well. I was most impressed with the enthusiasm and the passion that was there in the presentation. I think Sunita did a wonderful job. It's a book I'd very much like to read. So far as water is concerned, I think, of course, building over rivers and all is it's something that should not be happening. But probably the greater threat to water is agriculture. Our agriculture is so inefficient, and we've started growing crops in regions where they should not be. Uh, they have no business being
For
grown.
which they're not suited.
Like for instance, um, the water requirement for 1 kilo of sugar in
Oh, sure.
Maharashtra is much
Yeah.
lower than the water requirement of 1 kilo of sugar produced in the Punjab or in UP, you know. And similarly, basmati rice, we are really, it takes something like 2,000 gallons or 2,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilo of rice, some such number, I don't have it exact right now. So, so there are we're really destroying our ecology. When you go overseas, you find rivers full of water. Here you see the Yamuna in Delhi. It just looks like a small nala compared, because what we've done is that we've used up all our water in an agriculture which is simply too inefficient.
It's one of the only reasons. It's one of the reasons. There are many other reasons. Building also, and building on river banks, and channelizing and dams.
Look at what
Water
they're
is a
doing to
huge
Pune.
thing.
Look at Pune itself. What is
Look
happening?
at Pune.
Yeah.
And dams. When you build many dams, then you're restricting the flow of water into the natural channels. So, wo bhi hai?
Dams become necessary because India's geography is such that we get all our water in the space of 3 months.
No,
Nine
Sanjay, they say
Europe is
that
raining all the
they
time.
say yeah, because our electricity comes from it, right? Hydroelectric. Himalayan region, which are actually geologically very unstable.
Mhm.
So
And then
so
and they
and
are losing
you're
water.
shutting off the water flow from the source. So there are a lot of things. It's a very complex subject.
It is very
Very much so,
complex.
because
Many aspects.
even in this smaller areas, a small little dam that homemade the thing
Check
made by
dams.
the local people will be able to store water, and you will be able to use more the water there. Otherwise, it drains out
On the
completely.
other hand, without irrigation, because I've moved around and I heard these stories. Oh, Punjab, even large parts of Rajasthan, and of course Western UP, which are so fertile. I mean, they're fertile because the soil is good, yes, but they were not irrigated. And post independence, a lot of irrigation work was done to bring water to these places. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had our food revolution. The green revolution could not have happened. That's one. What has happened is now, because we are catering to international export import, we have started growing a lot of basmati rice in Punjab, which is
But
traditionally dry,
and Punjab was
where
mainly
wheat grows better. Where
we
wheat
always
grows
knew it as
better.
a wheat growing state.
Yeah.
I remember
That's the
that.
whole point.
Very
But
You,
much so.
Punjab is not traditionally dry because it
no,
is the land of 5 rivers, Punjab.
No, agree. No, but the
It was
weather
never
is cold and
traditionally dry,
extreme.
but it was not
The
used for rice farming.
it's not the kind of weather you need for rice.
Hmm.
Rice has to stand in a half a feet of water all the time,
Yeah.
so they don't have that kind of water.
but
So
you're not exporting rice, you're basically exporting your water to the Arab countries.
yes, absolutely.
That's how we need to look at it,
Yeah.
And
And they say now that water is going to be the next big thing you're going to fight over.
Oh,
right,
yes. Oh, yeah. The
Fight
water
over
wars.
oil, I think, is at its last legs because alternate sources will come. I mean, I'm sure in the next 20, 30 years, there will be alternate sources of energy. So oil will sort of go. And then what remains as a major, everywhere in the world, water is scarce everywhere. Look at California.
Oh, yeah. So
And look
parched.
at the whole of Western
Oh,
US.
yeah. Yeah.
And look at what's going to happen to us when uh, China
China has
builds
already built. It
that
is
big
it is
dam of
damming up the Bhagirathi. I mean, already Assam, Cherrapunji, all those areas which had such heavy rainfall and a lot of water, they're drying up. I mean, it's
and
part of
that
the
is a
climate change thing
so water is a very, very difficult topic. We
issue.
have to be working. I've told you about a book that I've been saying. Amitav Ghosh's Wild Fictions just been released. I'm
Mm.
trying to get it through. So within the next 10 days or so, I will be able to get my hands on that.
So
So
the other thing that that I read about because of reading on this book is that this whole trend of bringing back buried rivers, and I believe South Korea is leading the way in that, and it's called daylighting, where they are looking at the buried rivers and trying to see how they can, you know, get
Mhm.
it back, give it back, give
You
it.
know, all of
Yes.
you have been to London, right? And I was reading a detective novel of all things, right? Where they talked about it's set in somehow the sewers of England, which are supposed to be fascinating. And Fleet Street, so famous and so everything. It's called Fleet Street because it covers a river which is called the Fleet,
Oh,
you know,
uh-huh.
and so on. And it was one of the major tributaries which ran into the Thames. So there you are.
you're talking about rivers being damaged,
Covered up.
etc. We are
Yeah.
doing it here itself.
Oh, yeah. We're doing it.
And
Disgusting.
about 15 years back, I was invited to World Bank. And what work we've been doing down in Pune, and someone came and heard us, and called me there. I expected a few people. There were 50 people sitting there. And after that, the chief in that area, he took me out for lunch, and he said that in Korea, he was a Korean. What happened? Mo? Korea, uh, they had covered up one river uh, so that roads could be there, go there, make it attractive. Something like what we are trying to do. After 20 years to there, guess what they did? They have broken it up and let the river flow. There you
Hi,
are.
Anna. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so now that you all discussed so much about water, she did bring in, the author did bring it in with the pollution of the Thames, which he spoke about, where Arthur was born. And that's a very moot point because all the water that is on Earth is all the water that is on Earth. It's the
Correct.
distribution that's the problem. But pollution of the water is what is decreasing the water that is
Water
available to
supply.
us. And so she did bring it in, strangely enough, by talking about the Thames and how it used to be, though now I believe they have cleaned it up almost perfectly. So that was a very interesting point, that this boy was born there in this horrific situation, and he rose to be whatever he was. And the other points here, I think Sunita did discuss them in great detail, and it was a very interesting discussion. So thanks for that.
Rather than water, actually, I was quite fascinated by these Yazidi people. You see, during this Iraq war, They spoke a lot about the Yazidi people, and these Yazidi people are a very, very old civilization, much before Christianity, much before Islam, and they have got so much of culture in them. And for some reason, they are never liked by this present day ISIS. Besides that, I enjoyed the presentation and was very enthusiastic.
Okay, thank you. So, Kapila, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, as usual, Sunita has definitely interested me in getting to read the book.
Right.
But and I'm listening to a lot of water. I suppose it's because of the title of the book, The Rivers in the Sky. But what I have started, what has tickled my brain is regarding the role of archaeology, the antiques, and that has started making me think as to really what are we to do. And then she says, who does this belong to? So that's another new thought we have to think of. I mean, we go on having collections and musics and so many collections we have started, not only of the tablets and the statues, but so many other things. So even that is a bit to start thinking about. I don't know what to think about it, and my brain is not being able to put
It's
this
it's
to,
not an easy thing, you know.
yes.
I mean,
So
I don't know how to come to a conclusion. Like India has asked, you know, for some of their stuff back. The British, I mean, that museum, such an amazing place to go to. But then when you think that they have taken what wasn't theirs and coolly put it together, you know, I mean, but then there it is. So can you really turn the clock back? And oh gosh, it's a very difficult issue, isn't it?
yeah, but then
Uh,
again, the museums are the places where we can get back to the memories, isn't it? So
mm,
that's one thing. And then, of course, water, and water is importance of water. I think in is of today we
Cannot
should
be overstated.
very
Yeah, right.
overstated. And not only water by itself, but the whole ecology which goes with it
Mhm.
because of the water. And we as Puneites are actually experiencing it right living on the river. So we
Yes.
know, I mean, it's like as if we are talking about our own river. So
I mean,
that's
it's such
what
a
has
huge
started.
truth,
You're
isn't it?
very right.
It's a
You're very
truth
right.
close to all of us. Yes, Satish, go on.
No, that's very right. This is what
Mm, mm,
I felt it immediately when listening to
I know.
Sunita, that if it is there, it must. It's and we are doing it, and we are not the only ones. All over the world, water is being misused and thrown away the way it has been done. Anyway, there
Hmm.
are other people more.
Yes, I asked
Leslie,
Chetan, and then there's Monali. Yeah,
Monali.
yeah.
She tries to hide her, Monali.
Chetan, let's hear
Yeah,
you.
two things that I'd like to say that I really liked about what I heard about the book. One is I think I'm quite fascinated with stories that take facts from history and then weave, fiction around it. And there were so many pieces of facts here, including the fact that, when the epidemic of cholera happened, there was really data science that solved the problem. They identified the addresses from where the sick children were coming, and they identified the pumps that were causing the cholera, and therefore the source of the dirty water became and when they took the handles off the pump, they were able to control the epidemic. So these are just, it's so nice that you bring these facts into a fictional story and spin a story around them. And the second thing, of course, that I really liked was the fact that that she's saying that there is no fixed answer, that she hopes that her stories will cause or seed discussion. And I just feel that in the storytelling that Sunita and I do, we keep saying that it's not the performance of the storytelling, it's that we want you to think about what the story is doing to you, and seed that discussion. We went to Ahmedabad recently, and we were marveling the beautiful riverbed that's become the talk of the town. And then the other day we were at a lunch where there were some very learned people who said that it was a terrible disaster, and that the riverbed project is ecologically terrible. It has denied several people of livelihood, and it's really a cesspool. And I just thought, wow, what a 180-degree different view of something that I just thought was so fascinating, and saying, why don't we get the same thing in Pune? And they were all saying, no, save us from this. Let us
Yes.
not
Exactly.
make
Come on,
Pune into
Chetan.
the same
I,
Ahmedabad
you would have
Sabarmati
lost a
riverbed.
friend if you had gone talked about doing it the Ahmedabad way. I've been shouting and yelling at that What is going on in Ahmedabad is completely wrong.
You
The
know,
water from
I
the
never had that perspective, and suddenly I saw a different side of it. So I'm just saying, every issue in the world has got so many angles to it, and
Yes.
we just need to have discussion. I think there has to be some process of discovery before we dive in and allow somebody's
exactly.
megalomania plans to, just rule how things are going to be done.
और क्या कहना है
Absolutely.
अभी ज्यादा मत
Absolutely.
कहेंगे क्योंकि ऐसा ही है megalomania is the right
Yeah.
word that you're using. I'm not going to
Okay.
talk about it
Now,
anymore.
Monali, who knows Ahmedabad? Yes.
Uh, yes, I totally support what you have heard in Ahmedabad. Of course, those who had actually transformed this riverbed into a very modernized looking estate have won many, many accolades. The planning is amazing, but it is devoid of any ecological concern. And in fact, you wouldn't believe this, but because I stay just, if I walk down, I will reach the riverbed in 45 minutes. So that means the riverbed isn't very far away from my house. And every 6 months, we have got to renew the gas of either the refrigerator or the AC, because we have actually disbalanced the ecology in such a way that now there is a certain gas that gets emitted from the riverbed that does not get consumed by the green belt that once survived, and now it actually destroys this gas from all other electrical.
No, the water from the Sardar Sarovar Dam is meant for Saurashtra, not for
Yes,
having people to do walkways on the side of the river. And
yes.
absurd, absurd, absurd. Complete.
In fact, of course, there was a time, of course, there will be a devil's advocate here who will tell you that there was a time when Sabarmati River did not even exist. The river was there, but the riverbed was dry, and we had circus installed there every year. And people would dry clothes there and spices and dye clothes there, get them colored. So these were other activities, but at least there was a certain kind of livelihood. Now such people have had to go away from this place, and the
Which
presentation was poetic as the work itself. But the work actually talks about some very bitter aspects. Number one, it talks about territoriality. People have to move away from their places of origin to another place, migrate and go, and then even there they are not even welcome. So just because they are believed to belong to this devil worshipping community, they are actually captured finally, and then this girl who is already in a way disabled or differently abled, she's deaf, she's going deaf, and then she actually becomes a sex slave. Obviously she must be so reluctant to be so. So this is one such thing. The second one is obviously water. It is this all pervasive debate. Everything that can be captured and be claimed as one's own has been discussed here. The third one is, of course, are cultural artifacts, whether they are cultural practices or they are these tablets. Now, where do they belong? Like many of you, I've had this privilege of going to London. I've stayed there as a resident. I have actually seen, of course, I don't know if this is if the British Museum is the same as the Victoria and Albert Museum. But if it is the same, then let me tell you, I've been there many, many times. And if Victoria and Albert Museum houses artifacts from all over the world, particularly those countries that had been colonized by the British. And in fact, in one of the sections, which is called something like post-colonial Asia or something of that kind. And in fact, it was in one such panel that even my father had the privilege of sending one of our textile artifacts to that place for an exhibit.
Exhibition.
But when I saw that, I thought, doesn't this belong to India? But then the counter argument is that, of course, it belongs here. But in case if it is not a dead art or a dying art or entirely extinct, then it might as well stay there and educate people about the wealth of another country that had once been plundered by Great Britain. That's how I see it. Of course, this is only an opinion.
No, very
And
good.
So in a way, because of this plundering, because of this historical knowledge that we have, that countries have, I mean, people have gone to other places, they have plundered, they have excuse me, taken away other things and then made it their own. The Kohinoor belongs there now. Should it not belong to India? It's a big question. Okay, but another way of looking at it is, in case if it belongs there, it will continuously remind a certain class of people about the post-colonial history, the painful post-colonial history that is still absent from the curriculum of
Yeah,
the British.
exactly.
They
They're
don't.
just
Conversation went so grim and a little serious. I was just flipping through the book and I've underlined these lines which Nareen's grandmother teaches her, and I think it is so beautiful and apt. In the blackest sky, there is a star glimmering high above. In the deepest night, a candle burning bright. Never despair. You must always look for the nearest source of life. And I think one of the things I really wanted to point out was, besides the whole construction of the book and the cleverness of getting historical facts and incorporating them in the narrative, it is the poetic writing that is just so beautiful. I mean, I love authors who can do that, and she's one of the best at this. Like, the writing is so beautiful; it engages you. It's like poetry, and
no
that's
explain.
amazing. So
Okay, I've never felt that.
Yeah, I'm glad you
Okay.
brought that out, Yashodhara. Actually, I had marked that out that if I had time, I would read that. And it's
oh.
really, once again, a part, not the one that you're talking about, but it is about Naren's grandmother and she having a conversation about rivers and their personalities. And she talks about the Tigris and the Euphrates and how beautiful, and the personality of the Tigris, and how, and the personality of the Euphrates, and why one is calm and the other one's angry, and the rivers
Yes,
are explaining, as to why I can't remain calm because I am so angry about what is happening. And so beautiful, it's just so lovely and so engaging, really. But she's really phenomenal in
It's
that.
part
Yeah.
of our literature. You hear poetry, etc. Then you realize they're talking about an era which completely different. Ganges did not flow so widely before. It they made it wide because they were trying to grow what our Britishers wanted. So people, states like Bihar, which used to be the granaries of India, they were ruined by having them making them make opium and what was the other thing that
Indigo. Indigo.
indigo,
Indigo.
indigo started it all. Anyway, they have misused, and I think take away all our artifacts and give it to us now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
In fact, there's a very beautiful play. It's a very short play by Dinbandhu Mitra. It is available in English translation. The name of the play is The Blue Mirror. In Bengali, it seems the title is Nil Darpan. So it actually talks about how the British had forced the Indians to cultivate indigo so that they could take home the harvest and make the most out of it. So yeah, that's it.
I
Think
think
of it.
Gandhi came in for that, right?
Yes,
He
yes.
started
Yes.
he started with Champaran over that issue. Yeah.
Yes.
Plenty. Bihar used to be the granary of the country,
India.
and then it became beggar, ruined it completely. Anyway, more take over. Let's not get
Yes.
angry again
So
and again.
I think we should now wind up. And Sunita, I come back to you. Would you like to say anything in sort of summation?
I think, and I just love the fact that, I know that there were so many themes that were covered in the book and so many themes that touch your heart. And I'm glad Leslie brought up about the genocide, that we're killing people, and we're all watching in silence. And she talks about the silence as well, right? About how we're watching things happen, and what is our responsibility, right? Who is being silenced and who is being silent? And then so many things come up. It's not just water, but I know I read that now, and it always bothers me what is happening to women in Afghanistan, and how what gives me the right to live my life the way I'm living my life, when and look at what's happening with women there, and nobody's sort of doing anything about it, and life is just going on, kind of thing. So she touches on so many things, on the genocide, on water, on memory, on the importance of memory. And I think that was something that hit me when I visited Vietnam as well, and I went to the War Museum, and you see the atrocities committed, and you think, did we learn nothing?
I
And the
know.
fact is, we learned nothing.
Yeah.
It's important for us to have that memory. Um, I started by speaking about being in Varanasi and seeing the Ganges, and it is heartbreaking to see how polluted a river that we hold in such great
I
reverence.
know.
I'm not a
Holy.
religious person at all, but I just came with that, that of the belief that of centuries that has been drilled down into us, of this
Absolutely.
wonderful river, that really is the seems like the soul of Hinduism.
But I
Just
thought that it
gone.
had cleaned,
Kumbh
that
Mela is
there had
going
been a
on.
Complete
Kumbh Mela.
disrespect,
How many people are
complete.
diving into that?
It is filthy. I will, it is filthy, and we just have such a lack of respect for something that we hold so dear to us.
I
That
know,
is
so
really
weird.
that is the really the foundation of our religion, of where of everything that we believe in our religion. But it's terrible to be able to see that. So I'm
Right.
saying, I'm glad she brought up so many of these points that have remained with me, and I'm glad to see that it touched so many people as well. It's it's a lovely book. Do read it. I'm sure there are enough of critics, and there are some parts that you may find dense, but the overall, she has done a phenomenal job of allowing these characters to bring out themes that we all need to think about. So it's well
Right.
worth a read.
That's it.
Excellent. So what a wonderful choice this was. Really, what a wonderful choice for a book club discussion. And each one of us, has shown, as you say, how much it has touched us, how important these themes are, these issues are. Oh, it kind of almost exhausts you, to think of the number of things, number of issues that need to be addressed seriously, and the human race needs to start learning from history, right?
That's what books are for. Books will make you back, take you back and say, look, this is what is happening. See what they've had visions. That is where the vision comes. And if you notice,
Sunita, thank you so very much for choosing this book, for making such a fabulous presentation, that you've engaged each one of us. And I think each one of us is thinking now. I was thinking, I said I would borrow it. I think this book needs to be bought and kept, because it needs to be read. I think you need to immerse yourself in the book. You need to think about, you need to stop and think and talk and come back. I suspect it's that kind of book. So I think I should acquire my own copy.
no, but I have.
So today's thanks go out to you, and they go out to each one of the members who came, who listened, who thought, who spoke, right? Thank you, each one of you, for being here.